Hello, I'm Enzo Torresi, an Italian-born engineer living in the Silicon Valley for the past 35 years. I started as a scientist working for Olivetti, who brought me to California to start what would become the Olivetti Advanced Technology Center. We designed and built the first Olivetti personal computer, the M20. I then turned entrepreneur and started 6 companies, all with venture capital. And now with that experience, I am an angel investor, still actively involved in high technology, including the recent wave of green tech. In particular, solar energy excites me a lot. In my interview with Oscar Bartoli for his latest book, E anche questa è America, I made the statement that most of the high technology companies around today would not exist without the system of venture capital financing that started more than 30 years ago right here in Silicon Valley. One of the first companies that started with venture capital financing was Intel. That today is the largest semiconductor company in the world. And it was in the growing up phase when I first arrived in California. In fact, my Olivetti job at the time was that of resident engineer at Intel, where I met the pioneers of semiconductor technology. Names such as Bob Noyce, Andy Grove, and the famous Gordon Moore, the creator of Moore's Law, which states that the computing power of semiconductor chips will double every 2 years. We have to mention that at this time the computer industry was in its infancy, and all of these ideas seemed very futuristic and therefore very risky. In other words, there was no money available from the banks, and self-financing was too expensive. During those years, the success of companies like Intel, Apple, Sun Microsystems, Cisco, Applied Materials was the strongest factor in the formation of very large venture capital funds like Kleiner Perkins, Sequoia, Accel Partners, and Benchmark, to name only a few. The typical ingredients for a successful startup were and still are 1 or 2 entrepreneur founders, a strong connection with Stanford or Berkeley University, and the venture capital funds that finance the early stages of these companies. Today I still believe venture capital is the most effective vehicle for innovation in high technology. As a testimonial of this, let me talk about the example of the technology that I'm using today to communicate to you. The company that created the video sharing technology that you're seeing right now, called YouTube, was started in February 2005. YouTube, in July 2006, revealed that more than 100 million videos were being watched every day, and 2.5 billion videos were watched in the month of June 2006. YouTube had been financed by venture capital fund of Sequoia, among others. Sequoia was also one of the 2 early investors in Google. The other was Kleiner Perkins. The rest is history. In October 2006, Google, who was then 8 years old, announced their acquisition of YouTube, that was only 1.5 years old, for $1.6 billion in Google stock. We can say today that that was expensive, but it has been a very successful acquisition. Let me give you some numbers. In January 2008 alone, nearly 70 million users watched over 3 billion videos on YouTube. This technology from YouTube, just like Google and Skype, has completely revolutionized the way we communicate and find information. Let me give you a few things about Google. Google was started in 1998 by 2 Stanford students, Sergey Brin and Larry Page. It was financed by VCs 1 year later. It went public in the Nasdaq exchange in 2004 at $80 per share. It is worth remembering that Google stock today is higher than $500 per share, with a market cap of over $180 billion. The VC investment was done, by the way, at 50 cents per share. It has created literally hundreds of millionaires and over 10,000 new jobs. These astronomical numbers should not make you believe that venture capital is an easy field of work. For every success story like Google or YouTube, there are more than 100 that never make it. Still, it is clear to me that my statement that these companies would not exist without venture capital might sound like an exaggeration, but I'm afraid that we will never know. I also believe that the example of the Silicon Valley recipe of entrepreneur, plus university, and venture capital funding should be copied by any country truly committed to growth and job creation. If you ask me why countries like Italy have not been able to replicate a similar success and recipe, I would say that the answer is quite complicated. It might take another 7-minute clip on YouTube. Thank you, and thank you, Oscar Bartoli. Best of luck with your new book that I read cover to cover with great interest. Thank you again, and see you next time.